everyone, and welcome to Dementia Unplugged. I'm Jeannie Forrest and the host of Dementia Unplugged Care Conversations. And we're so thrilled that you can join us this morning. Today, we're going to be talking about dementia and ways to respond to hurtful remarks. Before we get started, what we'd like to do is just provide this disclaimer. All content, including any potential medical information, is provided as an informational resource only and is not to be used or relied on for any diagnostic or treatment process. It should not be used as a substitute for professional diagnosis, care, and treatment. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any healthcare decisions or for guidance about a specific medical condition. The opinions expressed and the content shared by me, Dr. Forrest, and my guests are not necessarily the opinions and content of the Dementia Society of America. Thanks for listening. As usual, I want to make sure that everyone listening in and watching understand what we mean by the word dementia. Think of the word dementia as a real umbrella term. And underneath it, it means that there are various types of conditions that present itself as a syndrome called dementia. The word dementia itself is not a disease. Now, there are many different types of subsets. Think of the word word like cancer, many different types of cancers. For example, like lymphoma, breast cancer, intestinal, colon cancer. Similarly, there are many different types of dementias that fall within the umbrella. So you may be familiar with more types like Alzheimer's disease. Other ones include things like vascular dementia, mixed dementia, frontotemporal. But honestly, there are over 200 different types of conditions that present itself as a dementia. Unfortunately, many at this point in our knowledge and science are incurable. So you are currently listening to a form of Dementia Unplugged called Care Conversations. It's the first Monday of each month. And we consider it sort of a life enrichment program where we have different experts, people in the field, talking about some difficult subjects at times. There are also Dementia Unplugged musical connections. This is sessions with brain scientists and performers who really understand the benefits of tailor-made, personalized music. And this is on the third Monday of each month. It's in partnership with Music and Memory. And lastly, we have Dementia Unplugged Artful Insights. This is more casual, and this is where people delve into their own personal appreciation and perspectives of different pieces within leading museums. And this is on the fourth Monday of each month, and it's in partnership with the Arts Philadelphia. So there's a lot going on, and we're just thrilled, especially me, that you're taking your precious time to spend it with us today.
It's my pleasure.
All right. And so now I want to introduce a little bit of background of our special guest, Lakeisha Lamar. She is a resident attendant at a place called Dale's Ford Crossing in Pennsylvania. She's part of a connections team who works with a variety of people with different types of dementia. And I'm going to let her explain how she spends her day in just a little bit. So again, we are thrilled that Lakeisha is joining us today to talk about this, not always easy conversation. And so I'm going to stop sharing so that you can just see the two of us for the time being. Okay. And there we are. Hello, Lakeisha.
Hello.
So glad again you're here. So before we kind of delve into the meat of this subject, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in long-term care and working with people with dementia?
So I started pretty late on. I think I was 29 or 30 years old. And people always ask me, why did you wait so long to get in this field? And I said, well, I don't know. I see the elderly on Grumpy Old Men and the Golden Girls. And, I thought it would be fun. So I started my first job, I think maybe 10 years ago. And the experience was like nothing that I thought it would be like. So I didn't have much training. The first place that I worked, it was more about just get the care done, just get the care done. That's all they really cared about. And I just was like, well, I feel like there's more to them than just doing care. So it wasn't until I got to my current place of employment where I learned a whole lot. Because I never knew about dementia. All I knew was, Alzheimer's, which we jokingly call it old timers disease. And I learned so much. And I had to learn how to engage with them, how to redirect with them, find out, what their unmet needs are, like just so much stuff that I learned from my directors and other people.
So what I'm hearing is, even though you were in the field for quite a while, you maybe didn't receive the initial education that had been as helpful as you did now. So that's an issue. So we can talk that a little bit, but unfortunately that seems to be a common experience where people are brought into this situation without a lot of skills to start and without a lot of support. And the fact that you've hung in there and continued, thank you for that. And we're going to talk about how it's important to sustain that. So I think the education, the skills, of course, I'm biased. I think they need to happen from day one. Okay, so that's a little bit about that background. Tell us what an RA does for people on the call who are not familiar. What are some of the typical things that you do in a care committee? What would a typical day be like for you?
A typical day is,
There's
just
no typical day. I know. Go on.
Caring for their personal needs, helping them with getting dressed, encouraging them to do as much as they can on their own, engaging with them, just sitting with them, maybe coloring, just anything that will get them to, be happy or, get a sense of, comfortability, maybe, if that makes sense. So it's just, basically just caring for their needs.
Okay. And do you work a particular shift or is it vary?
I have worked every shift.
Okay.
But right now I do the 3 to 11 shift.
Got it. Okay. So thank you for that. And for our listeners, just so you know, in about 20, 25 minutes, I will be asking for people to put in your questions through the chat button, and we'll address those, or you can do it through Q&A, either one. And so we will address your questions if they bubble up as we go on. All right, so let's jump right into it, Lakeisha. Hurtful comments, and from this perspective, what I mean by hurtful comments is hurtful comments that come from people with any type of the dementias. Can you give me some examples of what has been hurtful to you?
Well, I'll start with one. It's not really hurtful, but it's funny, because sometimes you do have to have humor to get through the day. So this one resident, she would call some of us the big fat one, and it would be so funny because her eyesight is like not that good, and the fact that she would like say that and she can't really see was like, really, like, am I really the big fat one? But that was something that she would say all the time, but we would laugh at it. One hurtful thing is like racial remarks.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lady who called us everything except for a child of God, and it was hurtful.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this is it feels awkward, and it is awkward, and this is difficult, but I think listeners, people need to know, there may be other resident attendants on the call or family members, to know that caregivers have feelings and not robots, and it is painful to be called names based on race, all of those things, size, whether the person can see you or not.
Right.
It can kind of seem to come out of the blue, and you think, well, how did this happen? How did I trigger this? And so tell me how initially you responded when you heard this. I'm going to say years ago, and has there been a change at all in the way you responded, or has it been consistent over the years?
No, actually, it doesn't happen. Thank God, not too often with me, at least. But the initial reaction, I was like, oh my goodness, like, how dare she? I'm helping her, I'm taking care of her, I'm doing something that she's unable to do, and she's saying these hurtful things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was me and I think two other co-workers with me, and they're like, oh, it's no big deal, it's okay. And I'm like, maybe not for you guys. So I had to leave the room,
Okay.
and, kind of get myself together. And I had a conversation with my director about it. And I felt like she was dismissive about it.
Mm.
And she's like, oh, Lakeisha, they have dementia. And I'm like, that's not no excuse, But as I've matured and I've learned, that is a reason, cognitive, they might not just be there, or, what I always say is I try to take accountability for my actions. And a lot of times we trigger them. And so I say, well, maybe, it was my fault. Like, how did we approach her? So
Mm-hmm.
I do think that it was our approach, and she was upset.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's why she lashed out on us. But after that, it was never like that incident never happened again. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, it was a one-time thing. And, I just walked out of the room and
yeah, well, thank goodness you had the foresight, but let's delve into that a little bit more. There are things that are happening in the brain for many of the dementias, in the frontal lobe, where when it's working, we have this filter.
Right.
We have this filter that can be thinking something, maybe not always nice about someone else, but we keep it to ourselves.
Right. Right.
Because that's the right thing to do. Correct. That said, that filter starts to peel away, especially frontal temporal dementia, others, but vascular dementia. But that's the unfortunate part about this. You layer onto that people who are older, who may have grown up in a time, unfortunately, where people said things about people of color, and it was more accepted, and I even hate to say that it should never have been accepted to begin with, but that was more common. And people time travel, they forget where they are now, and they go back to a time that might have been a younger time where that was more common language, unfortunately. So that's kind of the quote, why those behaviors may occur. Unfortunately, the result is still the same. It's still hurtful. It doesn't matter. You are doing your best. I like the fact that you said you tried to rethink your approach, because there's always something that maybe we can do a little bit differently. So that that can be one way of going about it. So tell me about the support. I think that's an important piece. You initially had a supervisor who you said was dismissive. And how did that feel then? How did it feel to have a dismissive supervisor?
I felt like she just didn't have an understanding of it because it wasn't her, and she may not have experienced racial slurs. So I'm like, I do have feelings, but
yeah. No, I get it. And so I'm hoping, if you're in a supervisory role, the people who are listening, who are responsible for other care providers, to understand that, yes, you can have this understanding that these hurtful remarks might come out of changes in the brain, but I think it's just as important to understand and to have someone talk about how that's hard, and provide the support. What about your? I know it's hard to speak for your coworkers, but can you explain other instances where you've seen hurtful remarks with your coworkers, and how have they responded?
I have, and this one particular situation, the caregivers were younger, like in their 20s, and it didn't bother them. It just didn't bother them, and they laughed it off, and that was that.
Okay.
So the incident that I was just speaking of with me personally, those co-workers weren't bothered by it either. They are people of color, but they are from different country or whatever. And they're like, well, I don't see why. It's like, I don't understand why Black Americans are so caught up on that. It's not a big deal. And I'm like, maybe not for you, but, for me it was. So.
Yeah. And I think that's an important learning, that we can't have a blanket statement that it's okay just because it is someone with a dementia, that there needs to be that additional support. So, all right, let's talk a little bit more. So so how do you keep yourself, and we're going to talk about, so when this happens, are there techniques, strategies? Is there anything that you're doing differently to perhaps deflect or distract? So what do you do differently than if you have a resident like this that's talking like this, what did you do differently to re-engage or kind of change the conversation?
Well, I always, for me, this is very important to get background on the residents, their likes and their dislikes, things that make them happy, music that they like. And once I find all of that out, I'm pretty good.
I'll bet.
So this particular lady, she was an alumni of Penn State University. She loved her school. So I get her in that happy place, Penn State all day, and just congratulate her and tell her how smart she is. And, you have to be very smart to get in that school. And I just, direct them to, what I, need them to do. This day, we just wanted her to shower. So with showers, that's kind of hard too, but normally they are cold. That's why they don't like to shower, or they're maybe embarrassed about being just undressed. So I always I'll put their clothes in the dryer before I start the care, put the heat lamps on, keep a towel on them, as I'm undressing them piece by piece. So it's just different techniques and things that you have to do to make them feel comfortable.
Yeah, no, and you're right on the money there, that it is about comfort. It's getting to know someone more than their dementia. What are their likes or dislikes? And that's the meaningful stuff. And that's how you can kind of, you're right, sway, redirect, and make it into, I like that how you say their happy place. That said, you have, this is tough work. This is absolutely tough work to do this day in and day out. So what is it that you do to keep yourself going in this type of environment? What is it that you do to sustain yourself so that you can get to the next day and do this again?
I just take time out for myself. I'm big on, spirituality. So meditating, reading. I like to go for walks sometimes. I absolutely do a monthly massage.
Yay. Okay.
So I just try to pamper myself. And another thing I do is I just put myself in their situations. I empathize with people, and I just know that it's not their fault. And nobody wants to do something that they don't want to do. So so I just empathize with them, and just take some time out for myself. And another thing is I try not to do extra shifts, like picking up extra shifts, because that is sometimes it takes a wear on your mental. So I think a lot of people, they chase the money, oh, I need more money, so I'm going to pick up extra shifts. And if you're not well rested, you can be cranky. And if they catch that, body language, they may, bring it back to you. So I just try not to overexert yourself and pick up too many hours.
Yeah. And wow, I can't highlight that enough, that people with any form of dementia absorb your energy. And if that's kind of a negative energy because you're overtired, stressed, cranky, then that's a ripple effect. Same thing on the positive side, you're well rested, and so that balance. So I can't imagine. I mean, how do you help your coworkers understand this, or do you ever see other coworkers struggling in this? And is there anything that you do to help them or not, or?
It's hard to help some people because a lot of my coworkers already have it embedded in their mind. They know what they're doing. They're doing this to be smart. Like, so I'm like, I try to, educate them, but it's like if they're not getting it. So sometimes I'll just intervene or I'll just, you know, I'll I'll take over from here, So
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So yeah, some people, you're right, might be younger, or trying to prove themselves. I don't need your help, all of that. But in the end, tell me if this is your experience, is if they don't use sort of the quote, the most appropriate approach or response, they're gonna quote pay for it in the back end. They're gonna have more difficulty, more resistance, more someone distressed because you didn't get to know that person up front. Has that been your experience?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. They always say you will never win an argument with someone who has dementia. And
Yeah.
that is the God honest truth. If
Yes.
they don't want to move, they will not move, So
Absolutely.
you can't make anyone do something that they don't want to do. And what I try to tell my coworkers is just imagine you're somewhere in your home and
Mm-hmm.
someone just starts pulling off your clothes. Like how would you feel? You would feel violated. You're gonna think, are they trying to, take advantage of like what are they
Exactly.
doing?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they would have a nose full of my fist if that was the case.
right, right.
It would make the absolute sense if I didn't know who you were and you started to say, "Well, let's take a shower." Really? So, yeah,
Right. And
yeah,
then they say, oh, they're being combative. It's like, no, you know, you violated them in a sense. You didn't let them know what you were doing. You just started grabbing on them.
yeah,
What do you think their response is going to be? So
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. So thank you for reinforcing that. I'm going to open it up to questions in a minute or two, but is there any question I didn't ask you, or is there something you want the people who are listening and watching to know about hurtful remarks and what you endorse is a way of thinking about this, first of all, and then what do you need other people, family members to know, supervisors to know?
um, we do understand that a lot of times family members are apologizing for, their relative. And I never want anyone to feel bad,
Hmm.
about the things that was, said or whatever. But if you just took the time out, and just ask, how did that make you feel? I am sorry about that, but just be a little bit more understanding if you can. Um, and I just really think that it's very important to do like a lot of training um for this field because a lot of people they just don't know. They don't have an understanding of, what's going on with the people that we're taking care of.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for that endorsement. I can't imagine being placed in a situation where you don't have any of the quote tools or the understanding, and this is difficult. I tell when I coach my own families and other communities, none of this is intuitive. No one went to school for this, right? It's not part of your basic education how to communicate with anyone with any kind of dementia. It's a different world, and you can only understand the turnover and why that's happening. Um, and so, thank you for really being a spokesperson for saying we need the education, if and the support.
Yes.
And you can see that. Well, look at you. I mean, you're beaming. Oh my goodness. So the fact that you're doing this, but you understand what's needed, and you're a great advocate. I can't thank you enough. So I'm going to open it up to questions. So all of you who are on the call, I'm looking at the chat button, and if you can have your questions sent in to the QA too. But all right, this is when I always get nervous about the technology. I laugh that something usually goes wrong every month. Oh, well, I just have to, I don't know if you could see this, Lakeisha. You're getting some really cool accolades here, but wow. Wow. Okay, hold on, everybody. Hi. People from all over are saying hello to you.
Hello.
And how do so the question, how do you calm a loved one who's become verbally aggressive? So what do you do, Lakeisha, to someone who's becoming more verbally aggressive to you? You may have alluded to that earlier, but maybe answer that again.
It honestly depends on the person and the situation. Like there was a guy who would just yell all kinds of things. And normally when he did that, he reminded me of the Snickers commercial where he was hangry. And I would give him a cookie and he would just be the nicest person. So sometimes it's just an unmet need. Maybe they may have to go to the bathroom, So you kind of just have, once you get to know a resident, you kind of know them, but it's like trial and error.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for that. And just to kind of add to that, I encourage people to think about 4 categories. When someone becomes aggressive, it typically is a trigger from one of these 4 buckets. The first one is our approach. If we're not approaching someone in a respectful, dignified manner, knowing their preferences, starting a relationship first, that's often the catalyst, right? The second one is usually a physical need, and that could even include pain. There's an unmet pain needs, but I have to go to the toilet, I'm hungry, those kinds of things. The third one is the environment. Is it too crowded? Is it too noisy? Is it too hot? Or is there an emotional need? They had a crummy visit with a family member, or they're distressed because they had this shower experience that wasn't pleasant. So they're upset, and that ripples through the day. So those 4 buckets. And you're right on by saying, what is it? Are they hungry? Are they angry? So yeah. All right. Awesome techniques. Here's one. This is a woman caring for her husband with Lewy body. I say things that hurt his feelings and don't even realize it. I cannot recall what I've said. I apologize a lot. Okay. So this is the opposite. Have you ever said something or caught yourself saying something that they take as hurtful, the person with the dementia as hurtful? Has that ever happened where they all of a sudden their feelings are hurt and you're like, what did I say? Has that ever happened?
Yes.
And then yes. How do you respond?
Being apologetic, and trying to, like, sometimes you don't even, think that it was anything big, but for some reason, it hurt their feelings. So when this has happened to not me, but a coworker, and she hurt this man's feelings, and sometimes you need more than one person. So when you have the one who was offensive, maybe you can have, like, if it's possible, to have another family member or someone come in next, and so that they can talk and, converse back and forth, and, maybe try to figure out what happened. Or I just in this situation that I was in, I just made his feelings valid. I just let him vent, and so if
Yeah.
that answered the question.
Yeah, no, you did. I think to validate, because sometimes you have no idea what's going to upset someone. This happens in real people without dementia too. You're like, yikes, that wasn't my intention. Okay. I'm so sorry. Now they may not be able to explain or tell you, recall, but it's that feeling that whatever you did, it wasn't good. And saying I'm sorry is a wonderful way of approaching it, even if you didn't understand it. I'm so sorry. I can tell that you're upset. I'll do my best not to do that again. And it may be something you've never even did. I mean, it could be something that they're thinking happened, and I had, if someone thinks, oh, I came in and I stole their purse. Well, I didn't steal their purse, but for me to go back and forth and say I didn't steal your purse, we'd be there back and forth all day long. So I'm so sorry, I won't do it again. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Oh, you're getting Lakeisha, you're our hero. Isn't this fun? Thanks for this awesome training. I got to change my attitude and actions. Here's one. Have you ever worked with people who might have the beginning stages of Alzheimer's who also have intellectual disabilities? So no, have you ever worked with someone maybe with Down syndrome and a dementia? No?
No. My best friend, she works with I don't know, MH. I think they call it mental health. I'm not sure, but she has a person that she works with he's elderly, and he has behaviors of a person that has dementia. And I asked her, I said, did they ever get him evaluated? I said, because it sounds like he has dementia. And she's like, that's the same thing that I was saying, but no, they're just focused on like the initial reason why he was here. This man is like 70 or 80. And he was in the system for years, for behavioral health and I don't know the correct term. It's MRMH. I'm sorry. Okay. But so me personally, no.
Okay.
I just don't. I think that we should never disregard anyone just because they're not, they don't have like the letters behind their names. If someone is, or you think that there's something more, don't be dismissive. Try to look into it. Because as caregivers, we are like, I would say, first responders. Like we see them every day, and we have a routine sometimes. And if something's off, we'll try to communicate that with our, nurses or directors.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. There's this sort of sad prevalence, someone might be speaking to, that there's a very high incidence of Alzheimer's related dementia in people with Down syndrome. And I've talked about this before. And so, this makes it a little trickier, but I think your general message is don't be dismissive. Try to investigate what it is that's upsetting someone. It's everyone has their own perspective, even people with a dementia. It's their perspective, their world, their brain is changing, and the onus is up to us to try to see the world from their perspective versus them trying to figure out our world. So thank you for that. Spot on with your comments. Awesome. Let's see. Okay. We must remember we should join their reality. It's not about our reality. Yes. So that's what I was trying to say, but thank you for our articulating that. So lots to learn, but I think you're a beacon here, a role model for all of us, family members, anyone interacting with people with dementia, first of all, need to be educated. Family members, where I see that people try to tough this out and figure it out on their own. Yes, that works to a point, and then they get frustrated, and you could, often families think, well, this person is doing it to me to give me a hard time. All of that. That maybe for your coworkers who don't have the skills, they may think the same thing. Someone's trying to do this just to give me a hard time. Can't you see I have 10 other residents to take care of, and I can't spend all this time caring for you? Does that sound familiar? Yeah.
Yes.
And this is where we talk about not putting the person first before the task.
Yes.
Have you heard that before?
Yes.
It's more important to know that person versus we got to get this shower done in 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think you've reinforced that. The other part that's come out is that you have feelings, no matter,
Right.
people, all of us have feelings. And I think, you're talking about your faith and the spiritual aspect, but are there other ways? Do you talk to other people if it gets bad, or is there other ways that you can vent about this, or is that sufficient for you to do what you're doing to take care of yourself?
It's sufficient for me. I try to get an enjoyment out of every day and everything that I do. There's never a dull moment with working with these mischievous people. Okay, they are mischievous, but they are a joy to be around, and it can be fun. So I just try to make the best out of the situation.
Yeah. Now I'm going
to love music.
Oh, absolutely.
It always works.
Now, this just popped into my head. This is why this is a live program. But do you think it would be helpful to have this kind of, quote, class in working with new caregivers? It could be any, certainly people of color, but anyone.
Everyone, yes.
If someone about hurtful remarks, because this is not a typical, quote, class that I've even done before, and I've done a lot of training. But from your point of view, do you think it would be sort of an essential topic to talk about?
I think that it absolutely would be, because you wouldn't, everyone is not the same. Everyone may not respond how I responded. God forbid, we don't ever want any abuse to happen, but we don't know what could trigger into the caregiver, what they went through, or so it can't be swept under the rug. It's stuff that's being said, and I think that we should just delve into it and just be able to talk about it.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I walked into a care situation once, and little did I know that the caregiver also was a victim of domestic abuse in her home. And when this resident tried to slap her, she became very confrontational and almost smacked the heck out of this guy. And, it was one of those whoa moments. But when you start to understand someone's own personal history, that could trigger this. And so to kind of working through that up front, if this happens, then that might be important, because we don't know. Everyone's home is different. You come into work with different disappointments and upsets, and your day could start out wrong, and then So the more we're talking through this, the more I'm thinking that this is will be an important piece of when where I train. So thank you.
I'm sorry. I want to add something
Please.
about coping mechanisms. Another thing, I just started doing this myself. You have to take care of your mental health. Like if you need to go like have a therapy session, do that. Because we sometimes we suppress things, and you don't want to bring home to your workplace. So I do weekly therapy sessions just to talk. So mental health is very important, guys.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, thank you. And one last question. This is a popular. This is great. One last question. How do you work with difficult family members who provide a negative reaction from the care maybe their loved one receives? So let's say you've got a family member, not the person with the dementia, but a family member who's now hurtful. Has that ever happened? And how do you respond? Because supposedly they're thinking correctly.
I'm doing the best that I can. I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, I'm always nice to them. Like when I see them, if I have to turn my head and make a face, I do that. But when I'm around them, I still show them respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand because sometimes they may feel guilty about having their family member there, and they don't know how to, let that guilt go. So,
yeah.
It's I just try, just try to deal with it, and I just be thinking sometimes with family members, like, you should really be nice to people. We're taking care of your family member. God forbid if you have some sick person that is going to take how you treat you on your family member. Mm-hmm. So, I just try your best and ignore it. And maybe they like another, coworkers, you have them deal with them. A lot of times I'm the person that has to deal with the family members because they're like, oh, they like you. I'm like, really, just throw me to the wolves. But kill them with kindness, still be kind. And that's it.
Yeah, no, I get it. You said some difficult things and some realistic things, and you're right. Kill it with kindness, but at the same time, Rachel says, I couldn't agree more. Regular therapy sessions are so helpful. Great tip. We don't need you to burn out on this because this obviously suits you. But at the same time, for any of us in any of our roles, we have to keep ourselves intact. If you're pouring from an empty cup, there's nothing left, right? From an empty gas tank. So the self-care and the care for each other. So I know that's one of the things I love about this community is we get it and we support each other the best we can. So Lakeisha, I can't thank you enough. I'm going to stop sharing, and I hope the technology works so I can go on to the next slides as we say goodbye. So this is where I often get into trouble. It still cracks me up. All right, hold on. Share screen. Okay, we did our conversation. All right, we did our questions. And so, yay. I just want to thank everyone for being with us today during this important conversation on hurtful remarks. I especially want to thank the Dementia Society of America that has supported this program. I would encourage all of you who are listening and watching to look at the website and perhaps donate so that we can continue this kind of work. It's an all volunteer organization, and I think it's just absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to stop sharing one more time. This really worked. Okay, Lakeisha, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know you've got to go and work today, and you're getting all sorts of accolades and thank yous from everyone who's listening. So all of you, thanks again. This program has been recorded, so it will be available. It takes a little bit for Kevin to put it on the site, but it will be available for listening and viewing probably within the month. If not, feel free to look at the rest of the programs. So everyone, be as well as you can and take good care of each other. Bye.